What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Cityscape Brewing. I'm Dennis, and today we're going to be talking about one of the more iconic beers ever for summer for a wide variety of beer drinkers alike. Some that may not even love a lot of different craft beers would like this beer, and I'm talking about Leinenkugel's Summer Shandy. Leinenkugel is up in the Chippewa, Wisconsin area, and it was found regionally for years and years. And more recently, over the last, I would say 10 years or so, you started to be able to get this kind of nationwide. All the way down in the Carolinas, I'm finding this on the store shelves and on taps all over the place. If you're not familiar with what a summer shandy is, or a shandy in general, it's kind of like a half lemonade, half beer, or a radler like they might call it in Europe. But essentially it is an American wheat beer with some lemonade type flavoring. However, we're not going to be using lemonade in our beer. We're going to be using a lemon crystal product called True Lemon. And this is actually made from real lemons, but it's crystallized. And we add this really, really late after fermentation, just before we're ready to package our beer to give it that kind of lemonade flavor. So without further ado, we're gonna start heating up our water, and then we're gonna go through the entire recipe. All right, I know you guys all hit that subscribe button because you're awesome, and you hit that like button because it helps out the channel a lot. But if you really, really wanna be awesome, hit that join button below and become a channel member. Members enjoy awesome perks like some exclusive recipes, my brew day sheets to help you along the way and take some notes, and you get to watch my videos early before anybody else. So hit that join button and become awesome. All right, we've started heating up our water, which is gonna be up to about 152, which is our mash temperature. We are using the 10-gallon, 240-volt all-in-one system from Clawhammer. This one also comes in a 110 version if you don't have access to a 240-volt plug. However, this system heats up really, really quickly, and I really love the fact that the 240-volt doesn't take forever to heat up that water, so that does have its benefits. And this neoprene jacket on the outside also helps keep that mash temperature without using a lot of energy to heat up, especially in the winter months. Clawhammer is a sponsor of this video. I'm gonna have all the links to go check out their systems, and they also sell brew kits in the video description below. This is an awesome setup. It's got a large green basket. It's got this recirculation lid, which I absolutely love. It also has a hop spider that it comes with, which we'll be using today. So go check out all of their equipment and systems. Help support small businesses, including buying the kits from a local homebrew supply store in the Asheville area. The recipe itself is actually pretty simple. It is 4.5 pounds of Pilsner Malt. I'm using German Pilsner for this one. Then it is 3.5 pounds of white wheat. That's what's gonna give it that cloudy wheat appearance that you see. And lastly, we're gonna add in about 1/2 pound of carapils. That's what's also gonna help it with some head retention and other things to help bring out some of those aromas and mouthfeel that you would normally find in a wheat beer. For hops in this one, that's also pretty simple. We're gonna be using 2 additions of crystal pellet hops, very low alpha acids hop. So it's really good. It's gonna be under 15 IBU at the end of the day. We're gonna add 1 ounce at 60 minutes, another ounce at 5 minutes. And then to aid with that lemonade flavor, we're gonna add lemon drop hops, 1 ounce of those at the end of the boil. I like to call them flame out hops. You can add them at 1 minute left. It really, again, is a low alpha acids at about 4.3 alpha acids for these. It's gonna help aid those lemon crystals that we're gonna add after fermentation and before packaging. For yeast, we're also keeping it pretty simple. We're gonna be using a packet of US-05. Any real clean ale yeast will work. You don't wanna really use any type of European wheat beer yeast because those are gonna give those banana clove flavors. We're not looking for that at all. So you can use something like an American wheat yeast if you'd like. Omega makes one, I think it's OYL002 or something like that. You can also use just a standard clean ale yeast like US-05 or White Labs 001. For this one, there's not much for water additions either. We're gonna be keeping that pH a little bit higher than normal, just like we did in our Hefeweizen video. So if you're up at that 5.5, 5.6 range instead of 5.2, 5.3, that's totally acceptable and totally fine for a wheat beer. I really, for my water profile, didn't have to add very much at all. I only have like a gram of calcium chloride and a gram of Epsom salt in there, but that's gonna be dependent on your own water profile. I'll have a link in the video description on how to find and calculate your own water profile and how to add salt additions to make your water profile match the style of beer that you're going for. Other than that, we're only adding our 4 grams of ascorbic acid in our mash like we always do. That helps preserve the beer and prevent oxidation, which is really important for wheat beers. So I would suggest doing that. I do that for almost all of my beers, except for the really, really dark ones. But even then, you can do it in all beers if you want to. This has been kind of a game changer for me. I add it in every single beer that I brew now. And the only other product other than that we're using is yeast nutrient towards the end of the boil. That's going to help give that USO5 a little head start as we start the fermentation process. All right, our water is basically up to temperature. We're gonna go ahead and shut off the heat and the pump. We're gonna go shut the valve off in the front of this here so we don't leak any water as we pull off the lid. We're gonna set this off to the side and we're gonna mash it. Just making sure we're good and stirred in and not getting any dough balls. The reason I stopped the heat is because the element at the bottom will continue to heat up, but I don't want that to go too high. We can always turn the heat on after we get good and stirred in to make sure that we're not shooting really, really high and it's gonna be difficult to cool down. I'd rather be a little bit low and let that heat element actually heat it back up after the fact, rather than being too high and then having to stir or wait around for it to get lower, which a lot of that starch conversion happens right away. So it's actually important to be a little bit low on your mash rather than a little bit high. We're also gonna add that 4 grams of ascorbic acid we were just talking about. Then once we're good and mixed in, we're gonna go ahead and replace our lid and get this thing recirculating. I've said this often, but I think the recirculation lid is one of the best things about the claw hammer, is because it allows you to basically rinse those grains the entire time that you're mashing. So we've started a 60-minute timer now. We're gonna be doing this for 60 minutes. We will come back and stir once in a while just to make sure it's good and mixed up. All right, we're almost ready to pull our grains, but for the last 10 minutes, I like to raise the temperature up to 170 degrees. By raising that up, it helps with efficiency, also kind of helps the viscosity, where it actually means that some of those sugars can actually get rinsed off of the grains a little bit easier. So as we pull this out, more of those sugars will remain in our wort. We're ready to go ahead and start pulling our grains out. So we're gonna go ahead and stop the pump and stop the heat source. We're gonna go ahead and shut off the valve on the front of the kettle here to make sure none of that flows out. Then we're gonna remove our lid, set it off to the side for a moment, and start pulling out the basket. One thing that really saves my back is this pulley system that Claw Hammer sells. You can actually easily hook this thing up and pull the basket out without having to lift up pounds and pounds of heavy wet grains. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this out. We're gonna let this drain for a good bit, letting all of that liquid out of there, getting all of the sugars out of there, and then we're gonna get this thing up to a boil. All right, I pulled this basket out of the way. It's over a bucket, just draining the last little bit of that sugary wort that we're gonna put back in here. I'm gonna start getting this thing up to a boil. The way I like to do this on the claw hammer system is to put it in manual mode by pressing this AM button. We're gonna turn it all the way up to 100%. That's what this lower number means. It's a percentage to get that going. Then we're gonna go ahead and get the heat on. Once this thing gets up to a boil, we're gonna turn down that percentage to about somewhere between 60 and 65. I like to do about 63 for my system, but it depends on your elevation. That will keep it at a nice rolling boil without going too vigorously for this 240 volt. If you have the 110 volt version, you may not need to do that at all. All right, as this is getting a little bit closer, we're gonna add a little bit of Firm Cap S, about a teaspoon or maybe a few just drops less than that. That's going to help prevent boilovers, both when we are getting up to a boil and when we add our hops. And speaking of, we're gonna add our hop spider that comes with the claw hammer system. We're gonna add that in there. So we are ready to do our first hop addition when this thing gets up to a boil. All right, as you can tell, we're getting up to a boil, so we're gonna go ahead and turn this thing down to 63. Again, that's gonna keep it at that nice rolling boil without going too crazy. So we'll give it a quick stir up. We're gonna start our clock for 60 minutes and add our 1 ounce of crystal hops. One last sniff. I'm going in. All right, with about 10 minutes left, we're gonna go ahead and add our yeast nutrient in. All right, 5 minutes left. 1 ounce crystal going in. All right, we are 1 minute to the end of our boil here. I have all of my chilling stuff hooked up, my plate chiller hooked up to the hose. That's been turned on. I have the outside of that plate chiller going back in and held on with this clamp that claw hammer provides. We're gonna add our last round of hops, which is our addition of lemon drop. That'll help give it that lemon flavor. Smells awesome. Let's go it in. And now the boil is done. We're gonna go ahead and shut off our heat. We are going to start the recirculation process into our kettle by opening up our valve in the front. I have all the valves turned on appropriately, and now it should be going through our plate chiller and then recirculating out of this hose right here, which you can see. So this will start getting cool. It is the summertime, so this is a little bit chilly, but it's not real cold where it could go directly into our fermenter. So I'm gonna let this recirculate into my kettle for a while. So we don't want this thing too warm because we wanna be able to pitch our yeast fairly soon. We don't wanna wait in our chest freezer, for hours and hours or till even the next morning. Then you kind of risk not having enough oxygen in there as well, which can kind of inhibit the fermentation process. And so making sure you're having a good start, we wanna get this as close to fermentation as we absolutely can before I throw it in my fermentation chamber. For US-05, we're looking at about 67 degrees for the fermentation temperature. All right, guys, we've got our beer all sitting in our fermenter. I'm gonna go ahead and drop in my sanitized and cleaned tilt hydrometer, so we were at with the gravity. Looks like from my refractometer reading, it is about 1.044. So we're just over where we were supposed to be at 1.042. I'm happy with that. The volume is just a smidge under 5.5 gallons. So that's probably the makeup for it. If I was to fill that up, it'd probably be right at. So we're hitting our gravity about perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and chill this down a little bit longer before I pitch the yeast in my fermentation chamber. Just making sure this is into the low 70s before I pitch my yeast. I think it's about there, but it won't take very much longer to get there. But the water is, of course, very warm right now during the summer months. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in there. Once my tilt says it is hitting in the lower 70s, I'm gonna go ahead and pitch this US-05 yeast and let the fermentation begin. Then once fermentation is all done, we're gonna go ahead and show you guys how to add those crystallized lemons and finish off this awesome Summer Shandy beer. All right, and just like that, we are back. It took about a week or so for this thing to ferment out. I let it kind of chill out for another several days afterwards to let it condition and make sure that it was completely done with fermentation. I went ahead and transferred this to a keg, and as I did that, we added that true lemon, crystallized lemon seasoning, if you will. This is basically just dehydrated lemon juice. And so what I did is I wanted to kind of rehydrate this so it didn't all sink down to the bottom of my keg. This would be a great idea, whether you're kegging or bottling, to make sure that it really mixes well with the beer. And so what I did is I took about a cup of filtered water and I added 20 grams of this true lemon into that mixture, and I stirred it up until it was completely dissolved. Once it was completely dissolved, I went ahead and transferred my beer into the keg, or in your case, if you're bottling, into a bottling bucket. And as that was mixing, I added the true lemon mixture into the beer. This would help mix it around, make sure that it's all good and infused inside of your beer before you package it into bottles, for instance, or in my case, I put it on gas in my kegerator. But now it's time for the final tasting, and we're gonna do a side-by-side comparison to the real Summer Shandy to see, well, how did it actually turn out compared to the real thing? So without further ado, let's pour a cold one. All right, so this one is my Summer Shandy clone. I'm calling it Lemonade Stand Shandy. And this is the actual Summer Shandy. You can tell there is a little bit difference in color. Of course, I don't have the clone recipe here, but they're nice and cloudy and both fairly light beers. I was actually surprised that there's really not a lot of head retention in either one right now. For right now, both of them kind of dissipated pretty quickly. Maybe that has to do with some of the lemon that's in there, but let's see how the aroma and the taste really compares. All right, so I get some of that lemon flavor in there, a little bit of kind of the weedy maltiness, if you will, but mostly kind of that lemonish flavor. Not real strong though. In this one, there is a little bit more aromatic lemon in the real Summer Shandy beer. However, it's a similar smell, just a little bit stronger in the commercial version. Yes, definitely picking up the difference there. It does have some aromatics, but let's go ahead and see how they taste. First, we'll go ahead and taste my clone beer, Lemonade Stand Shandy. Ooh, that's a solid beer and very good lemon flavor. I'm getting a lot of that kind of lemon kick. I mean, it kind of tastes like a lemonade. I mean, I'm actually going to be fairly certain it's going to taste similar to this. Not maybe 100%, but it's good. I still get a lot of that wheat backbone. So you can kind of really still taste the kind of straw flavor and almost biscuity flavor in the American wheat base, but then you get a lot of that lemon background, and so the crystallized lemon really comes through. I'm sure some of this is the lemon drop hops that we added towards the end of the boil, but I'm really picking up the lemon and still able to taste the beer. So it's not all lemonade, but it is really a great beer. This is a solid Radler style beer without adding any type of actual lemonade in there. Very happy with how that turned out. Now we'll go for the actual Leinenkugel's Summer Shandy and see if theirs compares. And there is a little bit difference of a flavor here. So I'm picking up that there is this almost kind of like a sweeter flavor in their lemons, maybe because they actually use true lemonade. I heard that a lot of Radlers actually use like a Sprite or a kind of clear soda, like a lemon lime soda. And it almost kind of has that sweet, almost sugary aftertaste like you would have if you tasted like a lemon lime soda, like a Starry or a Sprite type of drink. And you still get a lot of that American wheat flavor. So it isn't the same flavors, but they're very good. This one is almost very much lemon, right? I'm also thinking there is probably a very slight difference on the base malt recipe. Obviously, there's a color difference there, which means there's something in this one. I'm thinking there might be some actual honey malt, and that could give it this color and also that kind of complex sweetness. Now that I'm thinking about it, honey malt would be an excellent addition into this one. Maybe a half a pound in place of some of the Pilsner malt that we put in here, or maybe even in addition to it. And so in this particular case, I think that's what it is. I think it's a honey-ish flavor that's in the background of these two beers that gives the Leinenkugels just a little bit of a difference. Yep, that's exactly what I'm tasting. It's more of a honey flavor. Where this one in particular is more of a lemon forward. Both excellent beers, by the way, but this one doesn't have that honey-ish flavor. And so I'm really thinking next time I do this, I'm going to be actually adding about a half a pound of honey malt into mine to get that to be almost exact. So I'm very happy with how this turned out. I think the honey malt will go a long way in my version of this beer to make this one almost exact. But don't get me wrong, if you don't want to change a thing, you absolutely don't have to. I'll put the suggested honey malt in the video description below. Go ahead and check that out and brew this one for yourself. I am super happy with how this turned out. Oh my gosh, it is going to be crushable. I'm going to be drinking these things back to back, even probably tonight, to be honest with you. Very good, awesome summer crushable beer. If it's still warm where you are when you're watching this video, which for most of the country in the United States it is, or if you're in that southern hemisphere and you're starting to warm up for your winter months, go ahead and brew this beer. It is a fantastic Radler style shandy beer. This is definitely one that your friends and family, even if they're not big craft beer drinkers, will crush, I promise you. So with that, as always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you to all the people who hit that join button and become awesome channel members. It helps out the channel a lot. Leave any questions or comments in the comment section. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And with that, happy brewing. Cheers. Hey, thanks for watching my video. You're awesome. You want to be even more awesome? Hit that join button and become a member. You'll get exclusive members-only recipes and other perks like brew day sheets, and watch my videos early as they drop before anyone else. So hit that join button below, become a member, and be awesome.